While we don't yet know who will be the next head coach of the Atlanta Falcons, we do know defensive coordinator Ryan Nielsen, who was the instructor of one of the best Falcons defenses of my lifetime and experienced a huge jump. One of the better defensive coordinators, if not the best defensive coordinators the Falcons have had. He is going to Jacksonville to be their defensive coordinators. Originally, this was blocked by the Falcons. For whatever reason, they changed their mind. And I think the reason is obvious. They interviewed what they believe to be their top head coaching candidates, and they probably all said, "No, we want to bring in our own guys." So they started letting these guys like Ryan Nielsen, who is a coveted defensive coordinator on the market, interview with other teams.
Yeah, Marquise Williams, special teams coordinator, and Dwayne Ledford, offensive line coach, also were blocked, and then they were allowed to interview subsequently. After what I also believe, Chase, is, Arthur Blank or Rich McKay or Terry Fontenot, whoever basically, had envisioned a little bit of continuity among the organization, keeping Nielsen and at least that side of the ball kind of connected. Hopefully, somebody like Calais Campbell would return. And the fact of the matter is that's kind of unrealistic. Most head coaches want to get their guys in the building. And that's typical with any business. You don't want to be forced into any kind of marriage. So it was always unrealistic for Ryan Nielsen to be the defensive coordinator under a new head coach. But with that being said, I mean, Jacksonville is getting a hell of a defensive coordinator. I know the Falcons spent a ton of money on the defensive side of the ball. That's where they allocated most of their free agent dollars. But the fact of the matter is Ryan Nielsen's impact cannot be understated. I mean, the Falcons doubled their sack total. They went from a bottom 2 defense in terms of points and total yards to around league average. And I think that, you could even, go a bit higher and they would have sniffed the top 10 if Grady Jarrett had not gotten injured. He was such a pivotal piece of that defense. So it is going to be painful to replace him, but let's also not get it conflated, guys. I see people are talking about this is doomsday. This is the end of the world. Just like there's a lot of great offensive minds, there's a lot of great defensive minds too. There's always new guys, just like a parking lot. People are coming in and out. It's the same thing in the workforce. There will be another guy. There's plenty of options. And if you hire a guy like Mike McDonald, you don't need to worry about the defensive side of the ball or Bill Belichick. For as much flack as I give Bill Belichick as a head coach, the guy was still fielding top 10 defenses year in, year out.
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt about Bill Belichick and his defensive pedigree. And there's other defensive coaches at the Falcons interview. We just talked about Anthony Weaver, Aaron Glenn. But I agree with you on Nielsen. I mean, we were talking about this defense. I mean, it was a bottom 5 defense for about 3 straight years. And we were like, oh, if we could just get to league average. And we got to league average at the end of the season. And I know people are talking about there was like a 3-week stretch there where we weren't that good. Well, that happens. 2, it's not like the Falcons were loaded defensively. 3, they lost their heart and soul of their defense in Grady Jarrett. And then they ended the season strong outside of that last game against New Orleans. So, yeah, I mean, he was instrumental to that. The Falcons with Grady Jarrett were a top 10 defense in football. And I don't think I was ever going to say that at any point of being a Falcons fan. I mean, that felt like an absolute pipe dream, especially after just one offseason. Like, I know we got an influx of talent and stuff like that. But as I just said, this wasn't, I know I said the Ravens weren't the 1985 Bears. This was not the most talented group. There were a ton of holes.
Yeah, and to kind of piggyback off of that, those holes still exist. So the Falcons are going to have to be busy. I know we were much improved on that side of the ball, but we're still going to need somebody opposite A.J. Terrell. Will Clark Phillips fill that role? I don't know. Calais Campbell, Bud Dupree, both of those guys are going to be gone. Are you going to roll with Richie Grant again? There's a bunch of questions that are going to have to be answered over the offseason. And on the flip side, for Jacksonville, a guy like Trayvon Walker, number 1 overall pick, a lot of our listeners, Georgia fans, he hasn't had the career that maybe some people had envisioned, though this past year he sniffed double-digit sacks. Ryan Nielsen is going to be a godsend for Trayvon Walker. Maybe Calais Campbell returns, the return of Saxonville. Jacksonville should be very, very, very happy getting Ryan Nielsen.
I mean, Jacksonville was an underachieving unit. There's no doubt about that for the amount of talent, especially on the edge with Trayvon Walker, Josh Allen, and those guys.
Josh Allen, yeah.
And so they got a great one. Coming up after the break, Charlie Culberson is back with the Braves organization, but in a new role. He's not going to be that super utility guy. He's going to be a pitcher.